Good evening, everyone.
Good.
All right. We are live according to Hartford Public Access TV, so we are going to start. Hello, Councilwoman.
Oh, sir.
Hello, Councilman. Uh-oh. You got the Mickey Mouse. You got the Mickey Mouse sound again, John.
How's that?
There you go. There you go. All right. All right, we have a quorum, so we're going to start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Operations Management Budget and Government Accountability Committee meeting. That is a mouthful as always for today, July 19th, 2021. We are broadcasting live by our partners of Hartford Public Access TV. And thank you all for joining today. My name is Councilman TJ Clark. I serve as the Majority Leader for the City Council, as well as co-chair of this committee. And we are joined by two of our voting members, Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon and Councilman John Gale. We also are joined by our Corporation Counsel, Attorney Howard Rifkin. And looks like we are also joined by our Chief Financial Officer, Jen Hockenhall, and our Director of Finance, Leanne Rouse, and which we are also to have our committee assistant, Kevin Murray, who was on as well. So we're going to move very swiftly with our agenda. We have quite a few items that we have to take up today. So we're going to start in order. We're going to begin with item number 1 on our agenda, Mayor Bronin with accompanying resolution authorizing the transfer to the suspense book of $1,094,913.44 in outstanding delinquent personal property taxes for tax bills that the tax collector has certified as unlikely to be collected, which was item number 1 on our June 28th, 2021 agenda. And I believe that we have our Director of Finance who was here to address the committee. Good evening.
Good evening, Councilman Clark. Good evening to the rest of the council members. Thanks for having us here today. Nancy Raish, who is the city's tax collector, is having some login trouble, so she should be joining us shortly to answer any direct questions that you may have about the suspense list. But many of you may be familiar with this request as we see it annually. It is required per the statutes, the state statutes, to submit the request to council to write off any or to transfer to the suspense listing any taxes that the tax collector deems uncollectible. So as part of the documentation provided, you should have seen a listing of the specific accounts that make up the $1 million for this request. And I am more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Leanne. Can you just walk us through, this is something that we see on an annual basis, but can you, just for the sake of educating the members of the community, can you walk us through the process that the finance department, along with the tax, including the tax collector, goes through that brings us to this point?
Sure. So I can start, and if Nancy joins, she can jump in. So throughout the fiscal year, the tax collector keeps an eye on the accounts that are still out in collection. And what she does is there's 3 categories of taxes that we collect: real estate taxes, personal property taxes, and motor vehicle taxes. So knowing that real estate taxes can be liened, you typically will not find real estate taxes on a suspense tax listing. So it will typically be made up of motor vehicle taxes or personal property taxes. So the tax collector will go through those 2 categories of taxes, tax receivables, and make a determination as to whether or not these taxes remain collectible. And I can see Nancy connected now, so she can jump in whenever. So there's various reasons why the tax collector will make that determination as to whether or not a receivable is collectible. It could be receivable, a personal property tax receivable related to a business that may have shut down or have gone out of business years ago, and we haven't been able to successfully collect on that receivable. So there's various reasons as to why the tax collector would make any type of receivable in the personal property or motor vehicle category uncollectible. Nancy, the question from council was just a general idea as to the process of how you select which accounts would be on the suspense listing.
Okay. Do you want me to add anything, Leanne? I heard part of what you said. I'll just qualify it with this particular list is a personal property list for businesses that the assessor feels are no longer in business. So in past, we've taken a list of deceased taxpayers. I think the last year, this time it was businesses that the assessor removed from the current grand list for no longer being in business.
Thank you. Do we know how long these businesses have not been in business, and what's the actual other process that the city undertakes to try to collect these taxes?
Sure, I'll answer that. Well, Councilman, one thing I can tell you is that I've never been accused of not trying to collect from businesses. In fact, it seems to be just the opposite. These taxes are still collectible. They're just being taken off the books. The suspense list merely is taking them off the books. However, these are still referred to our third-party collection agency, Rossi Law, and we also have LexisNexis services in our office, and we, when staff have downtime, they're looking for people through Lexis to find, a better contact address or phone number. So we still pursue these accounts. However, it can be futile in some instances to go after businesses that aren't operating. So we don't spend too much time, but if we feel that there's something viable, we will absolutely enforce collection.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Councilman Gill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Madam Tax Collector, I'm wondering, do I understand that this entire list is made up of businesses that we're not looking at any automobile personal property tax on this particular list?
This particular list is all personal property, not automobile, correct?
And do I gather that some part of this list are businesses that may have sold to another business, and as opposed to people that have just closed up shop and disappeared?
Yeah, no, that's correct. Some are bankruptcies. I was looking through the list earlier before I left the building, but some are bankruptcies. There are various reasons. Again, it's the assessor's call. We're the collectors and they're the assessor. So if the assessor feels they're out of business, could be for various reasons, but I did note that some were bankruptcies. Some were recently, they could make no contact with the business. But again, Councilman, I want to assure you that it isn't that we won't attempt to collect, and they're all placed with our collection agency.
Another thing I would like to add, Councilman, is the tax assessor, while staff was working remotely, they did a lot of research on the personal property list. So they really went through business by business and tried to do the research for Nancy to ensure that that these businesses are no longer viable. So Nancy builds this suspense listing off of recommendations that she receives from the assessor's office. And I will point out that the assessor has probably stated many times that this personal property assessment list going into fiscal 2022, and that would be Grand List 19 is, Grand List 20, is one of the cleanest lists he's had in a while.
I guess I'm kind of wondering a couple of things. You know, how we compare to, say, New Haven and Bridgeport. You know, does everybody have sort of the same experience in terms of percentage of their grand list that they end up not being able to collect on? But also, I'm kind of wondering what other states do. I know each state is somewhat unique. I don't know if other states even have personal property tax on businesses and places. But it does seem like a lot of money. So it just raises the question whether there's anybody else out there who has figured out a better way of keeping track of things. So I don't know if either of you have comments on that.
I could definitely comment, Councilman Gale. You know, it has to do with enforcement. I mean, we could have a long discussion, you and I, about this, but you know, enforcing collection means that you're essentially filing lawsuits or sending a marshal out with an alias tax warrant. You know, because as tax collectors, we send out notices, and we send out notices, you know, twice a year, and then after that, the next notice they get is a collections notice. But you can only do that so many times before it becomes, you know, not effective. You really have to take the next step. And so we're reluctant in Hartford to pursue people further. If we sent out the marshal like they do in other towns, we probably would collect more, and you would hear many more complaints from your constituents. But that's something that, you know, it's something that we could certainly do. We could enforce the collections even further.
Would it be, you know, is there a cost benefit analysis? Would the cost of collections be, you know, less than what we would recover so as to justify it?
Well, I mean, you know, in my opinion, it's political. It's, you know, we certainly could, the cost is low. We're not paying our collection agency. They're adding a fee onto, you know, to the bill. And if they file a lawsuit, that's all recoupable because they added to the, they add that fee into the entire case. But at the same time, I think that's a discussion that, you know, that I've had with the administration and certainly with Leanne about how far we're going to go. Are we going to enforce further? But it's not an easy answer here in Hartford. I think most people feel that the businesses already are dealing with a very high mill rate. And so, you know, suing people is not going to go over very well. Leanne, do you want to add anything else?
I think the next steps for collection, as Nancy mentioned, is harsh. You know, it's sending a marshal to these businesses where they can chain the doors closed, or we can attach to bank accounts and retrieve our taxes that way. But then you're putting these small businesses, mom and pop stores, into quite a financial crunch. So it definitely is a decision that, you know, still being in this pandemic and a lot of local businesses shutting down just due to the harshness of the last year and a half or so, it's not the best move for our community right now. So we're doing the best we can. And as we said earlier, that this suspense listing is made up of businesses that are closed. So we will still enforce collections, although we think that collectability is extremely low here.
Thank you.
What's our collectability rate?
On accounts that go to suspense, less than 100. Yeah. Would you say around maybe 100,000 a year, Nancy? 130,000 a year on $50+ million receivable?
Well, Councilman, you know, to get you an accurate figure, I'd have to look into that.
Yeah.
that's a figure that we could get to you.
Okay.
And that would be, Councilman, collection of taxes that have been written off in addition to suspended.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that. Look forward to that information. Councilwoman Surgeon, and then Councilman LeBron, but also want to recognize Councilman LeBron and Councilwoman Bermudez for joining us. Councilwoman Surgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I got my question answered, but let me see if I can repeat it in a different sense. The third parties who are collecting the monies that we put in suspense, what is their rate of collection over the last couple of years?
So if your question is just in regard to collecting suspense accounts?
Yes.
I don't have that figure for you, but I can get it for you.
That's okay. Greg, that'd be great if you could send it to all,
sure,
all the members, because I'm just curious that you do have a third party, helping with the collection rate, and so it would be interesting to see how effective they are in the collection. I know these. It's not the monies are really not on the books of suspense, but it's still owed by the city or owed to the city.
Correct. Yeah.
So therefore, those monies are still owed, even though we're not showing it in the books. How much of that each year is actually really, collected that we have recouped from the third party agencies? So whenever you get a chance to,
yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I would appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Councilwoman. Councilman LeBron.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So if I asked the question that was asked already, I apologize, but I came on late. But this is also on the third-party collections. I've heard from various folks, a handful of folks, that they have a difficult time with that third party. And apparently, again, this is what I'm being told. I don't know if that's the case, but they make it seem that you can only pay through them. And they don't offer the opportunity for folks to pay directly back to us, the city. Do you know if that's their policy? Is that the fact, like once it goes to them, so for example, if I owed $500 or $100, yeah, they're charging me $125. Can I go to the city and pay $100?
You can. I can clarify that for you. We're very certain how this is operated. In fact, you can always pay the city because the collection can, the fee is added to the bill, and you have the choice of paying the city, or if they've called up the taxpayer and the taxpayer wants to make a payment, they can do it over the phone right to them. We settle the accounts on a monthly basis. However, there are motor vehicle accounts that they have filed, it's Rossi law, have filed lawsuits to collect. And this is where, some of the discussion was previously, where, they do file small claims motor vehicle collection suits. And in that case, in order for the collection agency to recoup its costs, you can only pay them. Once they filed a lawsuit, that's the only time. And they're not, they're few and far in between.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sure.
Thank you. Any questions, further questions from my colleagues? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Councilman Gill.
Sure, thank you. I'll make a motion that we send this back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been properly motioned and second to send this item back to council with a favorable recommendation. Any discussion? Any further discussion on this? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. This item is passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Nancy, have a good one. Be safe. Leanne, you too. Are you staying on?
I will stay on for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks.
Moving on. Item number 2, Mayor Bronin ordinance amending Chapter 6, Section 2-350 of the Municipal Code, item 22 on June 28th, 2021 agenda, and also has a hearing date today at 7 o'clock. So I believe that this is the ordinance that was, actually, sorry, nope, wrong thing. Anybody from the administration here to speak on this ordinance?
Mr. Chair, I think this is the ordinance, if you will, on the raises for non-bargaining unit employees.
Okay.
And I believe if Jen is on, she has information, although it's all detailed in the resolution that was sent to the council.
Hi, Jen.
Hi. Good evening, council members and Chair Clark. I'm not actually here to speak on this today, but if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And also, too, it's just important to know that this does have a public hearing for today. So it's safe to say that we will not be acting on this today until the public hearing has taken place. Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you, would like to make a recommendation for us to postpone this item onto your next committee meeting due to the fact that there is going to be a public hearing on this item, and nice to hear what the community has to say before we actually take a vote on this item.
Okay, I believe that was a motion to postpone. Is there a
second?
And the motion has been made by Councilwoman Surgeon, seconded by Councilman Gale to postpone this item until our next committee meeting, barring hearing back from a community with the public from a public hearing, which takes place today. Any other discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor on postponing this item, indicate by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. This item is postponed until our next OMBGA committee meeting. Moving on, item number 3, a resolution requesting that June 19th shall be recognized each year as Juneteenth, Freedom, Independence, and Emancipation Day in the city of Hartford, and through its Office of Equity and Opportunity, continue to explore multiple ways in which Hartford can advance justice and equity for all its residents. I will take the liberty of talking about this. We've actually had discussions about this prior to this committee meeting. I believe that there is still a similar resolution within Councilman LeBron's committee in the Labor, Education, Workforce, and Youth Development Committee. I believe it was in June of last year where the council did vote in support of recognizing Juneteenth as a city holiday. Since our time, the federal government actually has moved to pass this this holiday and make it a federal holiday. So I felt that it was very timely for us to have this discussion again, because from this standpoint, it is the will indicated in the resolution to make this a holiday and have it as a 13th city holiday. I believe the resolution in Councilman LeBron's committee is continuing with having this as a 12th holiday and having it as an alternating it with another holiday. I do believe in Attorney Rifkin, if you could let me know if it's true that the administration did try to negotiate with the unions on for this particular holiday. However, there was not an agreement between the city and the unions regarding that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that all of the bargaining units representing city employees approved Juneteenth as a 12th holiday, eliminating, I believe, Lincoln's birthday, except for one.
Thank you for that clarification. So are you able to say which union was not in agreement with that?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything confidential about it. It was the firefighters union.
Okay. So since there was only one union out of all of the collective bargaining units that agreed to it, What's the next step? Do you start from the beginning, or do you continue on with negotiating?
I don't know if there's been additional conversation. I believe the mayor actually provided a memo to all members of the council, updating you on the negotiations, and that the failure to achieve an agreement, a unanimous agreement, which I believe it's the mayor's view, the administration's view, that that's necessary in order to advance an ordinance change that would apply to non-bargaining unit employees, so that there was consistency across the board for city workers. I don't know if there have been further conversations. The effort previous was trying to effectuate something before Juneteenth this year. Obviously, there is some time to be able to negotiate something if all the unions were amenable to it. I believe it was the mayor's view that adding a 13th holiday would cost approximately $250,000 of city general funds to be able to do that.
I have a question. This is Councilwoman Bermudez.
Yes, Councilwoman.
So are we saying that, Howard, that we're not necessarily able to have this as a holiday, given that it costs the city $250,000?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that the effort that preceded this past Juneteenth, was an attempt to to create Juneteenth as a city holiday, which would be a substitute for one of the 12 holidays, specifically Lincoln's birthday. The idea that we could have 13 holidays is a matter of a decision to be made between, I believe, the mayor and the council. There would have to be, obviously, an appropriation to support the addition of a 13th holiday.
Councilwoman Bermudez, are you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Surgeon.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Corporation Counsel Rifkin. Attorney Rifkin, since we have just started a new budget year, would that means, how would we, should we approve this, and should the mayor agree, how would we, maybe Jen can answer that question for me also, because of course the budget did not include $250,000 for an additional holiday. How would we go about doing so? Any advice on that, or if it can ever be done for this fiscal year or not? Since we already started the fiscal year, do we go into next fiscal year for it to begin? But also, this is a national holiday, and I know each town or city, can honor and make their own decisions for celebrating Juneteenth. I know when Martin Luther King holiday was passed nationally, each town or city had to adopt that as a holiday within their town. So I guess from long-winded, how would we go about, or can we go about doing that in this year's budget?
Through you, Mr. Chair, first of all, let me just caution that the $250,000 cost is what I believe I heard was the cost. There would have to be additional analysis done to determine exactly what that would be. But having said that, the council certainly can, during the course of a fiscal year, amend the budget. But it would have to do so in a way that maintain the balanced budget that you adopted previously. So it would either be 200, let's just say it's 250,000. It would have to come from some current appropriation. So it would be a reduction somewhere in the budget, or most likely that, but you can do that. The charter contemplates that can be done again through a resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I do believe the memo that the mayor sent out to the council, that it was in that ballpark of, I know it was in the 200,000 range. I don't think it was in excess of 250, but I am a huge proponent of this being a local holiday, following suit of what the federal government has done. I took pride and pleasure in participating in the city's inaugural Juneteenth event. I think it was very well attended, and I look forward to the continuous celebrations. However, I think that we owe it as a sign of honor and respect to our forefathers and ancestors to recognize this holiday, not just through ceremonial acts that we have seen over the course of time, but also to as we do celebrate Dr. King's holiday in the spirit of a day on and not a day off. This should follow suit as being a day on, and on as meaning service and participating in various events, and not just a day off just to relax, but something to actually honor and recognize of the acts and heroic acts. So I do again support continue on in the spirit and effort to find a way, and I believe that Juneteenth actually falls. Actually, no, it will fall in this fiscal year. If somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
It will fall under this fiscal year. So I'm committed to finding some way to still pursue these efforts. I saw a hand. I don't know who was first. Councilman Gale?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me say I second your sentiment that Juneteenth should be a city holiday. I previously introduced the concept to council, fully supportive of it. A couple of comments, though. I think, as has been pointed out, there's no cost to Juneteenth if we eliminate Lincoln's birthday. And Lincoln's birthday is not a federal holiday. And many communities in Connecticut do not have Lincoln. I think New Haven, if I'm not mistaken, does not have Lincoln's birthday. But in any event, I just note that there's no cost to exchanging one holiday for the other. I also note that the cost that has been given to us for adding a 13th holiday was the overtime, the expected overtime costs from continuing with those services that will have to be performed regardless of whether it's a holiday or not, police, fire, some public works. What's not included in that number, and what I don't think anybody's quantified, I don't know if our budget director could quantify it, is what's the loss of productivity. If you add a 13th holiday, you are therefore reducing the number of work days for everybody in the entire city. And unless you say everybody's work is totally valueless, we do lose productivity. I don't know what that number is. The third comment is listening to our corporation counsel explain that not all the unions approved Juneteenth, and understanding that the fact that they haven't, notwithstanding, there ought to be a way for us to migrate into this holiday. It may be that we need some further input from people because whether we make it a 13th or a 12th, I think we can do it. Firefighters notwithstanding, it may just be that it gets folded in when different contracts come up for negotiation. It may be an issue that you can't do it in the middle of a contract without their agreement, but I do think that once a contract is up for renegotiation, that all the unions are then bound by whatever city holidays we've enacted. So, and as I said, I mean, it may be from listening to everything here, we just need to hear some more input as to how that works, and we apparently have some time. So maybe we want to just continue this for another meeting to get a little bit more input. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Chair, if I could just clarify one thing.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
You can't just merely fold it into when a contract is opened for negotiation. That the holidays have been part of what is bargained for and acknowledged. So if the city made a determination to offer Juneteenth as a holiday and substitute it for Lincoln's birthday, it would have to be agreed to by the collective bargaining units, whether it was pursuant to negotiation of a contract that was going to expire or in the middle of an agreement. So I just want to make clear that that would have to be part of the process.
Thank you, sir, for that clarification. Councilwoman Surgeon and then Councilman LeBron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do wholeheartedly support everything you just spoke about regarding the contribution to America and especially to the city of Hartford. When we celebrate Martin Luther King holiday, it's an honor of celebrating our history, of celebrating our contribution, it's a pride of knowing that all the contribution for people ahead have passed on, we are now honoring them. I think Juneteenth is very similar, where we are celebrating the history of our commitment to making this city of Hartford and America great. One of the things I've always done in celebration of Martin Luther King, it's not a day of a takeoff of a leisure holiday. We actually take our kids out to different functions so they can learn more about their history. That's one of the things I've done with my daughter, my grandson. Taking them out, taking them to the celebration, so they develop a pride of what their forefathers have done for America and for the city of Hartford. So I don't think the city workers, as far as taking a day off to, relax. But I do believe that when you honor the contribution, I think that's really makes up more for the pride in our city. We are here in the city of Hartford, where the city is pretty much 70 or 80% Latino, African American, and I believe by honoring the people that are here certainly gives a pride for the people in the city of Hartford. I did miss the Juneteenth celebration, but from all the pictures I saw that happened this year, the celebration of the pride, it was unbelievable. I believe the city of Hartford should definitely make this a 13th holiday. Basically, whatever the cost is, $250,000, and whatever the additional cost will be, to the city. I think the city employees would be honored to go out and actually take a look and celebrate the history of the city. So through you, Mr. Chair, I am definitely going to be voting that we do not postpone this item. We do take action on this item, so it will go forward.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman LeBron.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I agree with all the sentiments, and I think there's a unanimous spirit and belief that this needs to be done. I think that is without question. I think on top of that, the federal government solidifying it as a holiday even makes it more pertinent for us here in the city of Hartford. I think we have two opportunities, one being that we switched the 12th holiday, and the other one being that we add a 13th holiday. I think the 250,000, I know from a budget standpoint, Hartford has its issues. It's, public news and people refer to it all the time. But to be honest with you, I think the 250,000 is nominal, as compared to the importance of what this means. And so, although I'm not a voting member on this committee, you guys know that I always like to attend all the committees, and whatever I can do in the background to support any efforts, because it seems like the 12th holiday is a union issue, the 13th holiday is a money issue. What I'm saying is we need to overcome these issues. However, it can be done and in the fastest way possible. So it's more of a comment, Mr. Chair. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councilman. We always are glad to see your presence here in the committee meetings and adding value to the debate. We do appreciate your comments and your feedback. Any other discussion? All right. So, given that, the chair will entertain a motion for favorable action.
I would like to put a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair, that we favorably send back to the council, favorably, that we ask the mayor to make this the 13th holiday in the city.
There's motion been made on favorable action, a favorable recommendation to send this out of committee to the next council meeting. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of sending this item favorably to council at its next meeting, indicate by saying
aye. Oh, aye.
All right. Any opposals or extensions?
I'll abstain.
All right. Ayes have it. There are 3 ayes and 1 abstention. So this item is passed. Thank you. Moving on, the next item we have on our agenda is item number 4. Excuse me. Mayor Broden with a company resolution requesting pursuant to City Charter Chapter 10, Section 7, the Court of Common Council hereby authorize the mayor to expend uncommitted fiscal year 21 budget surplus after transfers to fund balance and CIP / pre-funding of school construction projects for purposes of allocations approved in the ARP, which is this is a replacement item from our June 12th, 2021 meeting, which was item number 1. And I do believe our Chief Financial Officer is here to represent the administration.
Thank you. Good evening, Council and Chairman Clark. Before you is a request for the authority to spend a portion of the fiscal year 2021 surplus on projects related to various ARP spending categories as presented to you back in April. The reason for this request are the city is receiving less funding than originally planned due to changes in the funding calculation through the federal government. It's approximately $4 million less than we had originally thought we would be receiving. And also the Treasury guidance that has been presented in the interim final rule is proving to be more restrictive in nature than originally anticipated. So therefore, we would like to use the surplus funds, which will allow us more flexibility and will better allow us to fund the plan that has been presented before you. So that is my very short presentation, and I'm here for any questions that might come about. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues before? Okay. Councilwoman Surgeon.
Thank you. Hi, Jen. Hope you're doing well. Just one question, a couple questions. Just one question. How restrictive, after reviewing the ARP guidelines, how restrictive have you seen those to be in how we spend our funds?
Yeah, so thank you through your chair. Good evening, Councilwoman. Nice to see you as well. And right now, they're really not final rules. So it's interim. So they're still working on the finalization of the rules. I believe that everyone's guidance was to be presented to the Treasury on Friday. So they're still taking in all of that information and processing it to come to the final rule. For right now, what we're seeing is a lot of restrictions around kind of the economic development piece that is put before you. There's just restrictions on kind of how you can spend that. If you can give it to, like, a business that is new versus a business that, was closed, right? That went through financial hardship during COVID. So there's a lot of restrictions in that area that make it a little bit difficult to move forward with some of our plans, but we won't know the true guidelines there until we get further guidance, which I think is probably a couple months out before we can finally say these are the true barriers that we're working in. So that's why we're requesting this, just to be sure that we've got the flexibility to continue on with that plan.
So just one last question through you, Mr. Chair. So basically, just for a layperson like myself, I would say I'm kind of swapping out monies in a sense, if I can just use those words, where we are still going to be funding the same amount of monies we are getting for ARP. It's just that we will use our CIP funds monies that we pay as you go, and then replace it back when we have the different guidelines from the federal government. Am I making, does that sound simple?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. Councilwoman Surgeon. Jen, question. When does the city anticipate on receiving funds from the federal government for ARP, or have they been sent yet? And what's the process? Like, how frequent would we be receiving these monies from the federal government?
Sure, yeah. So we've received half of the funds already. All the days meld together these days, but I want to say it was last month that we received the first half of the funds, and then we'll receive the second half next year.
And just for the education of the community, how long do we have to spend these funds?
We have until December 2024 to commit all of the funds. So if there's a project ongoing and it's not finished by 2024, it can still continue on, but all the funds need to be committed no later than December 2024.
So does the federal government require us to basically indicate, let's say, in midstream, what our intentions are regarding these funds?
That's a good question. We have to do reporting on these funds every quarter. So we'll be reporting on what we have spent to date. I apologize, I can't answer the question on what our intentions are. If what that reporting process looks like, I haven't come across anything on that, but definitely what we've spent year to date. I'm assuming that by 2024, we'll have to have completed some kind of report to say what we're going to do it on. Along with it, in the interim final rules are also interim guidance on how we can report the funds. So they're still working out the kinks on that. So, but I would assume that there's probably something along the lines of, what is your commitment at the end of the 3 years?
Thank you for that. So I would assume that the Department of Treasury would be considered as the funder, the grantor, from the federal government. So all reporting will go to the U.S. Department of Treasury.
I believe so. It'll be through the sam.gov, where we do all of our other grant reporting through. Yes.
Councilman Clark, if I may, this is Leanne Rawls, everyone. There are two types of reports that we have to submit to the U.S. Treasury regarding the ARPA funds. The first one is the interim report, and this just provides an overall, an overview of the status and uses of the funding. So essentially, it's going to be the plan that Mayor Bronin put in front of council, and that council essentially approved. And then we only have to do that report one time. And then we have a second report that will be due quarterly, and that is a project expenditure report. So that one we have to report on projects that have been funded to date, expenditures incurred in any contracts and subawards over $50,000. So like Jen mentioned earlier, There's constant guidance, new guidance coming out on how to handle these funds, and we're staying on top of it as best we can.
Thank you, Leanne, for that. Councilwoman, I see a quick question. Is Hartford the only unique municipality that has received a reduction in what was already projected, or did this hit every municipality?
Yeah, it hit every municipality. It's my understanding that when they originally did the calculation at the federal government level, they left out other types of governments or other areas that should have received funding, so they had to redo the funding calculation. So it was everyone.
Gotcha. Thank you, Councilwoman Surgeon.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. That was one of my questions, so thank you very much for asking that. My second question is, since we have received half of our funds, is the report of how much has been spent to date and how we've spent it to date?
Yes, I'm going to let Leanne jump in here. I believe that our first report is due to the government in August. So I don't know that there is an official report that is out yet, Councilwoman, but I'm certain that we could provide something to you if you'd like it before then. But Leanne, am I correct in saying that it's due end of August?
Yep, so it's due on August 31st. And so far we've had minimal transactions happening, Councilwoman. More on the Department of Children, Youth, and Families and the Youth Services for summer services. That's been the more time-related expense driven. And we haven't really seen expenses come through yet, but more the procurement of said contracts. So.
Great. Oh, thank you, Ms. Rawls, because I do have a memo going to the Chief Operating Officer to let us know the number of contractual agreement through the youth and the youth service that we have put up the applications for. So I'm anticipating I'll get that list of what's been approved of what's been funded, or not even funded, but what's been approved for the youth. I think it's through the Recreation Department. I'm not quite sure which one of the developments, which one of the division the youth applications have been going through. So I'm anticipating getting some kind of report on ones that have been approved so far. I know there were several different contractual agreements or applications, for 5,000, 24,000, 24,000 and above. And I would like to see, how much have been approved to be funded so far.
Okay. Yep. We'll definitely work with the COO and see if we can get you the information you would like.
Great. Thank you so very much.
I have one question. I know that we are receiving the Hartford County money as well. How does that work? And have we received this? So I'll back up. Have we received all of the three categories, the city, the board, and the county already, half of it, or is it done on a different timetable?
I believe we have received half of all of those. It's my understanding. At least I can speak for the city side and the county side. I'm not sure on the BOE side. I would assume that we have gotten that, but I don't know that for certain.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues? Hearing none, the chair will entertain Councilman Gale.
Yeah, I'll move to send it back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
And properly motioned and seconded to send this resolution back to council with a favorable recommendation. Any other discussions on this item? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of sending this back to council with a favorable recommendation indicate by saying aye.
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 It's unanimous. The ayes have it. This item is passed and it is going to be sent to council for the favorable recommendation. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Leanne, for your time. Right, moving on, and item number 5 is an ordinance amending Chapter 28, Article 9 of the Municipal Code of Hartford to align standing building committee for school building projects with state laws, Special Act 01-7, which was item 6 on the council's July 12th, 2021 agenda. And also want to note that this item does have a hearing date of 10 minutes. Councilman Gale or Councilman LeBron? Okay. I saw Councilman Gale. I called him Councilman Gale first. Sorry, Councilman Surgeon. Go ahead, Councilman Gale.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on it. It sounds as though, based on our prior action, it would be appropriate not to take action on this tonight in any event and wait for public comment. But you know, I think it was sent around. I think it was included as part of the ordinance. The backup was the state statute. And so my understanding, at least, is that this is really sort of what you might call a cleanup ordinance. It's just designed to clean up our ordinances so that they're consistent with state law, because apparently we haven't been consistent with the state requirement for quite some time. And I would note as a footnote that unfortunately I've seen, and I think folks from Corp Council have occasionally made reference to this, that there are lots of areas in our ordinances that, you know, would be helpful to clean up at different points in time. That our ordinances aren't always necessarily consistent or necessarily compliant. But anyway, that's very quick my understanding of the point of this, which is why my name happens to be on it.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Surgeon, you got your hand raised. Councilwoman, you're on mute. Still.
Sorry, sir. I was just going to say that our past action on the resolution suggested that we postpone this item since there's a public hearing to get some input from the community before we deliberate on this ordinance. So I would put a motion on the floor to postpone this item until our next committee meeting.
Thank you. Motion has been put to postpone this following past practice of an earlier item to postpone this item to the next committee meeting because of a public hearing that's taking place tonight. Is there a second to postpone this item? Any discussion on this? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of postponing this item until our next meeting, which is next month, indicate by saying aye.
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 It's unanimous. The ayes have it. This item is postponed until next month's meeting. Right. Since it appears that there's no other business to discuss for this committee meeting is now adjourned. And for the viewing audience, please stay tuned. You can go get you something to eat, and we'll be back at 7 p.m. for our public hearing, which I believe is going to be chaired by Councilwoman Bermudez. And so thank you very much for attending our Operations Management, Budget, and Government Accountability Committee meeting. Have a good night. Stay safe. Take care.
Good night.
Good night.